Well, thanks again for this opportunity. Thanks for taking the time to come and listen to probably the most non-technical talk you'll ever hear in this. All right, so how many of you are really lucky enough to not have to report to somebody? Work for yourself, you have your own company, you have a remote gig job, you make your living finding and turning in bug bounties. Very few. For a substantial portion of your career, you are going to be reporting to somebody. That's just the way things are. Somebody has to pay for all this fun things that we do. Now, in an ideal world, we'd be recognized for the wonderful things that we do, the beauty of craftsmanship, the beauty of the code that we write, and we'll be justly paid for what we have to do just by dint of the stuff that we produce. In the real world, though, the value of what you produce for your company is perceived and dependent on a human being. Usually the guy you report to.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Okay. So I was saying that you are tied to having somebody, a human being, up in the chain in the organization that you work with, who really makes sure that you get paid. That's just the way things are. It doesn't matter if how good you are in your code. So there's that human factor that's stuck in that loop of what you want to do. What I'd like to do is explore that a little bit and see just how important that is for us as developers to be able to recognize and understand what these dynamics are. This is from a talk that I gave in my company where we had a summit between the developers and product development. These two worlds never met. There were a lot of issues going on. And finally, somebody in upper management decided, why don't we do a team event to see if you guys can get together? And so I volunteered to talk about the mindset of a developer. See, what is it that makes these developers different? Maybe you can understand where these guys are coming from. Maybe you can understand where you're coming from. The highlights of these things are a few points that I picked out. A lot of this is going to be very familiar to you guys, but I'm just going to go over that so that, because a lot of these things we take for granted. We don't see how people see us, okay? Abstraction. We have to hold the whole world in our head. We need to be able to abstract what we're doing. We need to be able to decompose what we're doing. And at the same time, you're writing code that manipulates a single bit of data. And you know that it has to fit within a larger ecosystem, within this whole world. That takes a different kind of mindset. A lot of other people don't have this. And so when you talk to, let's say, product development, or your managers, or sales, or your UX people, very often, you don't understand. You speak in abstract terms because that's where you describe the system. If it was already built, we wouldn't have to be there. What we're trying to do is build something that isn't there usually. And so the best way to describe that is something in abstract terms. When you can't do this, and when you don't realize this, and you keep speaking in abstractions to people who don't quite get it, tends to lead to frustration. So this is one of the things that you will see that quite often happens, right? This is kind of important. None of us here just walked into what we do. We had to learn skills. We actually had to learn a hard skill in order to do what we do. Managers, by dint of a bunch of soft skills or just by being around, can technically get into a position where they are managing you. What we do is almost like craftsmanship. I like to think of it like in the old days where you would have to apprentice to somebody. You would have to learn your craft, you would have to learn your trade, you would have to prove yourself, you would have to go through steps where you did certain things before you're allowed to do certain other things. That to me is one of the few disciplines left where something like that happens. So we're justifiably proud of what we do. Look at us over here. We put in what, 8-10 hours at work in front of a computer screen? We took the time to come over here. Yeah, free pizza, free beer. Aside from that, now, how many other corresponding departments in your office where you have people who have to do something like this? We have to be on top of our skills. We have to keep improving our skills. We have to keep honing what we do. There's new stuff coming up all the time. There's anxiety that we feel. There's this new framework out there. I need to know something about this. And that's like every time you come here, right? Somebody talks about this, somebody does Redux, and somebody. But we love what we do, and we thrive on that. With this, we might tend to look down on our peers who aren't developers who work with us.
Never. Never.
All good intentions, but the problem is this is what it comes across as. What it comes across as arrogance.
Totally.
Joke.
You forgot correct.
Reaction point.
Your slide is coming up.
Now, this is another thing that I found. What is the single best thing that you can do? If I come to you and I talk to you about, here, I wrote this piece of code. Can you take a look at it? I don't want to hear you say, oh, this is the most elegant, this should be the next pattern. I know what I did. I know I'm good at that. What I want you to do is look at my stuff and tear it down. I want you to tell me what went wrong. And that's what we naturally do. That's what we do code reviews, for heaven's sake, where we try to tear each other down. That, to me, is the best respect that you can give to another developer. You don't see this in any other departments. And when we carry the same attitude, when we have our meetings with our managers or a product or sales, when they come up with an idea, what's our first thing? We start thinking of the worst case scenarios. We start thinking of things, how this is not going to work. Most other people don't think that way. You're always thinking of the sunny side situation. So what does this come across to them? These guys are being difficult.
Miserable. Yes.
They don't realize, they feel that everything we bring up, these guys always come up with some kind of negative connotation. It's not that sales comes up with something that says, why don't we have the new feature? And everybody's going to say, yeah, our customers are going to be great. We are the ones who are going to write the code, maintain that thing, and so we're always looking for, what the hell could go wrong with this thing? I know our system doesn't support this, you guys are asking for this, and so that's how our mind works. And that's what we get across when we talk to these people. So I just wanted to highlight a few of these things, just so that we get an idea of how others might perceive us. This, I think, will help us when we have to deal with wanting to understand who your manager is. A few days ago, there was this.
This is a comedy talk, right?
I'm crying on the inside. A few days ago, there was this thread on Slashdot. Take it for what it's worth. It's an interesting article. But again, articles of this kind, what do? The first thing you do is jump to the comments, because that's where the really interesting stuff is happening. Somebody made a premise that when you try to value your assets in your company, what is it especially in a software company, most of it's IP and mind, right? Your software developers really more valuable to your company than money. The comments are really interesting. When you get a chance, just read this. Now, this runs the gamut from we're the heart and soul of the company. If we developers, if you lose developers, you've lost everything. To the other end saying, oh, that's nice, but all you are is just a widget. And to be honest, lots of companies see development as a cost center. All we are money-making entities. And so it behooves us, if you want more control over your career, over your life, over the kinds of things that you want to do, it's important for us, as nice as it is for us to sit in our cubicle, start banging out code, at some point or the other, remember, there is a human being above you who is not a developer, who is really pulling the strings and controlling things. You need to understand this. I know a lot of you are thinking this is just unfair, but that's the way it is. Most managers are there for a reason. Now, if you could change things, that's fine, but you are stuck with what you have. So what do we do when we're stuck with something? Let's try to figure out what we can do to get around this one. The big question, how do you actually understand your manager? I want to posit that you already have the skills to do this, every one of you, just because you're a developer. Your manager is hard to understand. What do you do every day? You guys work with all kinds of platforms, all kinds of OSs, all kinds of browsers. They've got their own particular quirks. You take the trouble to understand what those things are, and you still write software to deal with that. You still try to understand that. See where all this is going. A human being is still something that you can hack, and that's what I'm trying to draw the parallels to. You think they're hard to communicate with? You guys are multilingual. You are fluent in multiple languages, not just languages, but dialects. If you think about it, I'm not talking about just English and whatever, but you know what I mean. You know how to manipulate data. That's what you do on a daily basis. You don't even think about it. So the messages, the information, you need to communicate with whoever else, with other humans. You have, I'm telling you, you do have that in you. You just need to find it, nurture it, and bring it out for good. Dealing with people, personally, I don't like dealing with humans. That's one of the reasons why I got into doing this. But it's really not that difficult. What do we do? That's part of our work every day. We deal with external systems, varied systems, different languages, different platforms, different whatever. And what do? We work with APIs to deal with them. We pore over technical documentation and literature to try to understand what these things are. I'm telling you, you don't have to do quite as much if you want to work with humans. So think of your manager, think of people you have to work with in a similar challenge now. I guarantee that you will feel that this is not an insurmountable problem. It's something that you can actually do. And so let's look at a few ways that you might want to. I'm going to throw out some examples. Again, a lot of this will be familiar for you, but I'm just going to, it's almost like an exercise to the reader. Let's think of a few kind of managers you might have dealt with. So what we're going to do is, a lot of this you recognize. What we try to do is understand what is the motivation that kind of makes them do what they do that we don't like, and what we might do to try to manipulate that situation to our advantage. Micromanager, everybody's seen a micromanager. They're over your shoulders, they want to see exactly what you're even installing on your machine. What is the root of that, really? Why would a manager be a micromanager?
They're trusting.
Sorry?
Trust.
Trust, that's what it boils down to. But what does that trust, where does the lack of trust come from?
I was going to say control freak.
They used to be
freak,
developers.
Sorry?
They used to be developers.
And so there's developer envy now that you couldn't do that anymore?
What are you saying?
Okay,
And there's a lot of
but
managers.
you guys
who used to
got
be
it. So
developers
there's
who
two
were never
things,
trained
right?
to be managers.
Either they're a control freak and that's part of their nature, or they're insecure, which is what leads to them wanting to be the way they are. how can you actually feed them? Now that you know that this is what's driving them, what are the things you can do to maybe help them get around the situation, right? So it's bottom line, it's all about information. They feel that they don't have a handle on things that are going around. So what can you do? No? You can do the doobot thing, and you can actually inundate them with information. That's one way of doing it, right? I can write a git commit hook every time I check in my code. I generate an email and send out to my manager saying, yeah, here are updates, these lines will change, and so he gets a bunch of information now. At some point, we have to be judicious about this. Is that really what you want to do? But let's think about what else we can do. You might have to spend a little more time on stats reports, a little bit more detailed. So that might be one way you can go about it. Try to anticipate, get that anxiety out of them, feed their addiction if you, and again, all of these are things you do. You do have to write stats reports anyway. If you don't do that, that's like you're not documenting your code. We will go a little bit into why these stats reports and things like that are a little bit important. Now, you might have to take it a little bit further, not just what you did. But some managers, you might also want to let them know, this is what I'm planning to do. And all these are skills that at some point or the other, in some project that you worked, you would have been called to do. Okay, going back to this point, these are skills that you already have. All right, slave driver. And these guys is, sole purpose in life is to extract as much as they can out of you and more. Now, this is going to be a hard one to do, right? What you have to do, though, I think, you have to set clear boundaries, because these guys, it's okay for us to work overtime once in a while, but if you keep doing that, you get burned out. And knowing a manager like this, they don't have a sense of boundary as far as they're concerned. The only way that they feel that you can provide value is by them pushing as much as they can. And once you understand that, maybe what you can do is, while you're at work, you're 100%. And while you're off work, you're done. I know it's easy for me to throw these things out, but really, these are the kind of strategies and tactics that you need to think about. So the thread, again, going back over here, is you can label anybody, but then try to find out what is it that gives them that label in the context in which you're working. And that, I think, is the first step to a solution. Let's see, who else do we have? We have
I was going to say that it could be in the case of a slave driver that they're getting pressure from above.
They're getting pressure from above, and that's a really valid point. I'll come down to that in a little bit later, because you will find that among all these things, there is a common thread of things that you can actually do to address in general. And you've got this guy who insults you. Snide remarks all the time, commenting on you. It just ranges from, again, all the way from somebody who just puts you down all the time to somebody who just outright abuses it. Right? If somebody's putting you down all the time, to me it's like, at least he's talking to you. Well, and think about this. If you were interfacing the system and you were getting gobbledygook coming back, what's the first thing you think? Am I encoding right? He's speaking a different language, I'm speaking a different language. So maybe one way of addressing this is, I'm expecting UTF-8 and that IBM 360 over there sending me FCD. Some characters come through, I can kind of make out what you're saying, the rest of it is saying. Maybe a way of, now that you know that this might be a problem, maybe a way of addressing this would be to confront them and ask them, look, what is it that you're trying to tell me? Try to modulate exactly what they're telling you, rephrase in something more constructive.
So I'm going to ask you to explain how I would say most developers are generally not outgoing, forthcoming, confident social people, which contradicts the right thing to do that you're telling them, but the real problem they have is getting over that boundary.
We got one manager in the office.
Shut up.
Sorry.
And they've taken the first step to do that, coming out in a place like this. Like I said, I don't like talking to people. I'd rather be doing what I do. But I force myself to do this just because I'm getting old. And I have to use cunning to make up with all the young people coming out with all the new technologies. And so I found it. But to your point, this is something that the first step, if you realize it's important, then maybe you take the trouble to do it. And again, you have it in you. You find some new technology that everybody's working on, some new testing framework that people are raving about. You will take the time. You will spend nights, evenings, weekends to go and try to figure it out. So, because you see a value to that.
Yes.
That to me is my point. The whole point of this, I'm trying to say that you can't just bury your head in your work.
Love it.
We need to represent ourselves, and the way we do it is by, fortunately, we live in a world of humans.
And I think the other point you're making as part of this is you would only want to deal with this person because there's a reason you're still there, right? The other answer, I mean, no,
Yes.
there's something about this environment
That's true.
that you're there in spite of the insulter.
In spite of this, because this option is always there. You can leave. That's an unspoken option. You can always leave. And you're right. There is something in there that you like. You love what you're doing. At work, I love the product I've been working on. I have managers who I can't stand because they're ruining everything they're doing.
This is going to be published. Be careful.
Joe might edit that out.
And that's fine. This is my way of starting a revolution, instigating people. But that's absolutely right, though, because in spite of all this, so there is that motivation. You have some kind of a drive. What I'm trying to give you over here is that some tools that you might, or some ways of thinking in which you might want to address this problem. So, now, if you have somebody who's just flat out abusive, that's a situation for HR. Really, there's no reason to take that. But again, use your techniques, the ones that you do. When you write code, you document your stuff. When you do all these things, document the damn thing out of it. Because when you take it up to HR, you need that. So again, in everything you do, you are practicing the skills that you are doing every single day in order to navigate your office life.
And at the base of any insult, there's always insecurity. That's what's
It's always
driving it.
insecurity,
Yeah.
right? So right. So maybe if you like it well enough, the person is, nobody's 100% evil, nobody's 100% good, right? You find some parts of him, parts of your manager that you're willing to work with. These are ways you might want to address it. Try to find out, all right, let me try to understand you. And then you've got the clueless manager. And there's two kinds, right? He may be intelligent in a way that you don't understand. Meaning that not all managers just rise to the position because somebody died. Some of them are really good at what they do. And they're doing that because they have a different mindset, they have a different kind of intelligence. So what is your problem? When you talk to them, don't use your words. Don't use your technical term. Don't try to explain it as another programmer. Don't judge them. It's easy for me to say, but again, I think it's easy for you to do too, because, come on, you're working with multiple systems, right? I'm working with CSS on one pane, I've got JavaScript on one pane here. Bang important means really important. In JavaScript, bang important is no, not important at all. And you juggle very complex concepts like this. This should be a walk in the park, really. So let's think about your clueless manager who is really clueless. They don't get it, they don't see what you're doing. It's not going to help the situation for you to, in turn, be a bad developer and kind of put them down. It's just not going to get anywhere. Maybe one thing you can do is check your ego at the door, right? If you think that's so much more superior in intellect to this clueless manager, as you call them, put that intellect to use. Make him look good. Try to understand where he's coming from. What is it that you can ask leading questions? Put the answers in his mouth. Use your intellect that way. It's a win-win situation at that point.
one thing I found too is if you can somehow dream up an analogy for the problem you're solving, that sometimes, you know, you don't have to go and explain, I don't know, why a NoSQL database is different than a SQL database. But if you can find a way of, well, it's kind of like this, and we chose this because of that. And
again, metaphors. You have it in you because going back to the original point, you always abstract stuff. Find something else to abstract. Don't just think in terms of jargon or software terms. Find something in the real world that you think that these people might be able to relate to, and that way you can get your point across. Then you've got the alarmist. They either like the adrenaline rush that comes with everything being high priority, everything being in hot fix, or they're just totally disorganized, in which case they can't get stuff going, right? We have a manager like that at work, and one of the things we do is we still feed that alarmist mode that they like, because they like the rush that comes after pushing all this stuff in out there. So you've got a bunch of priorities. Pick the highest priority, which you would have done anyway. Make that sound like that's what we really need to work on. So you get your stuff done. But at the same time, you understand that this is what's important to this person. Make it seem like it's a big deal. We really need to get this out there. So this may be one way of maybe working with somebody like that, right? Somebody who's disorganized. These are people that you have to bug to get your stuff done. You're always on their case. Do you approve that thing already? I need to get the stuff out there. Can you send out that, can you approve that change management request, whatever. I can find out what is it that drives their disorganization? What is it that drives this alarming? Maybe, again, like to your point, maybe it's something, maybe they do have to report to somebody else. They have a monthly status meeting. They don't get stuff organized. When it comes close to that, they start freaking out. What do? This is the kind of behavior that manifests itself. Now. If you can figure those things out, again, you can be prepared. Find out what is it that this manager needs in order to calm down. And you might be able to provide that. Because ultimately, that's what you need to be able to do. You need to make it in such a way that your manager doesn't have to be there. If you can anticipate all the things that he's doing, that he's providing for the organization that you can actually do, he's out of the way, and you're out there now. So that may be another way of thinking about it. So, almost 30 minutes. As promised, we haven't done a single line of code. But what we've done today, though, is not very different from a technical presentation that you would have seen over here. Right? Think of this as maybe human-based computing. What if I title this programming patterns for human-based computing or something like that? That's exactly what it was. It would have sounded long technical. We would have probably got a lot of people in here. But but to me, though, this is really the next frontier, right? If you want to be on the cutting edge of what you want to do, you want to work on fuzzy logic, you want to work on quantum computing, what better place to practice? And the ultimate, what's the word? For
hack.
Something that's in multiple states. A human being, where you don't have zeros and ones and everything is fuzzy. So, go out there, go forth, practice these techniques on your co-workers, and now try hacking your manager for your benefit.
Does this work on my wife?
You know what?
Holy crap, that's exactly what I was thinking!
I'm glad you brought that up. So I've been married almost 25 years now. And
I'll bleep it out if you need me to.
She's not going to watch this stuff.
She's not going to watch it, that's right.
That's exactly one of the things I've learned. Like, my programmer mindset is when she comes to me about a problem, I try to go back with her, here's what you can do to fix it. What I've learned in order to save my marriage is that she needs to vent. She needs to rant. She's not coming to me for a solution. Again, techniques I took from what I was doing as a programmer. Because when I deal with that program, that's what you come to me and tell me what your problems, right? You're not expecting me to just sit over there and, it's not very good. We're very elegant code now. Why do you want me to kick something? And that's what I thought I was doing to help. It wasn't the case. So there's a bunch of common threads that we can take around from here, right? Status reports, very, very useful for multiple reasons. You should be writing this anyway. One, for backing up if you get thrown in the bus. To me, I've got this painful thing of doing these annual performance reviews, which is just a thing that the company puts to make themselves feel good, doesn't go anywhere, but something we got to fill out, right? Status report's perfect for that. At the end of this, skim through that, dump it in there. Keeps my resume updated, what I'm doing, because I tend to forget what I've done. And if your job is really that bad, and you're going to look for another job, at least listing these things out, make sure that you don't get into the same trap again, because you tend to forget the kind of things that we do. So that's that. Again, start practicing this. You have applications in your real life too. Thank you.
Great. Taking questions? I have a question.
Oh, yeah, sure.
First of all, that was awesome. It was really good. I kind of had, well, you had mentioned about the disorganized boss. What I found is, I think that's what you were saying.
CJ,
I actually tell them, here's what I'm going to work on, like the status report. Here's what's coming up. And here's the things that I need you to do. So he would be like, you're going to do this, then I'm going to do this. And he'd know my work is waiting on him. And I found that really helped this guy, because he's busy putting out the fires.
No, he feels that he has something to concentrate on.
And this way I'm like, I'm going to do these important things, but you need to do this thing first. And it's in writing, in an email. Maybe it's not a report.
And well, that's actually a good point. Also find what works for them. Email may not always work. We have people who just get inundated with the inbox is like never going through. Maybe Post-it notes work for them. Maybe a hard copy printed out that you can check mark, put on their desk, stick it up on your whiteboard. Maybe that works. Again, the key there is trying to find out what is it that works for you. I'll be down there for questions. Anybody else wants to ask?
Thank you very much.
yeah.